Welcome everyone to Charts Focus 1, where we teach you how to work hard and trade smart. All right, let's get right into the markets. So last week, right in the middle of last week, we got that big breakout finally out of that 413.50 to 410 tight consolidation range. Now, what's the confirmation that we have an uptrend in our hands? Well, number one, we have an increase in volume, right? The volume has substantially increased from the time when we were consolidating very tightly between these two price levels. Number two, we have my 10 SMA finally going upwards compared to the 21 SMA. We're starting to see a divergence of the 21 and the 10 because the entire time that the price was consolidating, we were continuously converging and coiling with each other. So the fact that the 10 and 21 SMAs are now moving further apart, that tells us that we are in an uptrend. At the same time, the 10 and 21 are also just curling simply to the upside. All right, that's a very simple observation. And then the third one is my daily 50 SMA, this dark blue line. And I have been mentioning this for the past couple of weeks. So the daily 50 SMA has been curling upwards and has been moving slowly to the upside, which is exactly what we want. But if you guys remember, I believe I said this last week and even last week, that we want the price to break to the upside. And if you want to see that happening, we need the price to start moving away from the daily 50 SMA, right? Because again, if I say the price is moving away from the daily 50 SMA, then I'm usually talking about an upside move. And that's exactly what we got here so far. The price is diverging and is moving away and distancing itself from the daily 50 SMA. This is good. Now, with that in mind, with all that information in mind, let's kind of start looking into the short-term perspective. So we have hit the major level of 420. And anything above 420 is a major area of supply. I have repeated that multiple times the past couple of weeks. So we have reached this first target price. And our first rejection came when we retested 424 the first time in a couple of months. Okay, so with this new higher high compared to 417.62, and before that 415.72, and then before that as well 416.72, as I mentioned multiple times in the past as well, there could be another potential for us to move down. Why am I saying this? Well, just based on the previous price action, when we have reached a new higher high, we tend to pull back. Now, the one thing that I am not expecting us to see is a big, large pullback to the downside like this. Or I'm not going to see some sort of a large pullback where bears just absolutely smash the price lower in a couple of trading days. All right. I'm only going to expect a nice, solid, textbook consolidation pullback, right? Where we're starting to see a little bit of a push outward by the sellers for the buyers. And we may be seeing a little bit of selling here and there, but the buyers are just sitting there waiting to recapture the price, okay? And they catch the bid and we start moving the price up higher. And that will most likely happen once my 10 and 21 SMA start to catch up, especially once the 10 SMA catches up to the price. And once we see a first retest of the 10 SMA, we will get a nice bounce and possibly a potential flag formation, specifically a bull flag formation right underneath 420. And that is our most ideal situation for us to have a reason to continue higher and break over 420 and enter into a new supply area or zone between 420 and 423. That's right, we have a new target for SPY. Now, you might be wondering, wait, why don't we just take a look at the next previous pivot high point, which is right over here at 426.37. Now, the only reason why I'm not looking at this just yet is that we haven't even gone up to 423 or even tried to use 420 to 423 as a new area to consolidate, a new range. So, at some point you have to ask yourself, are you looking too far into the future, or are you not looking into the future, far into the future enough? And right now in this situation, I am not willing to look further into the future, and I'm only looking to look at the most recent price levels, such as 423, as we have hit this level a few months ago, back in August of last year. All right. Now, just proximity wise, okay, 420 and 423 are not that far away from each other, right? It's only 3 points away from each other. So that's another major reason why I'm looking at 423 rather than the next pivot high point of 426.37. Okay, so 420 to 423 will be my new price range or potential consolidation range if we decide to move back over 420 and stay over 420, using it as a new level of support. Okay, so make sure you guys keep that in mind. Now let's talk about the QQQs or the Qs. So as you guys already know, this one has been amazing as we saw a huge breakout over 330. And I was literally comparing 330 to SPY's 420 level. So you guys can clearly tell that SPY is lagging behind QQQ. And that's also the reason why I said that there is a possibility for us to use 420 as a new level of support, and we can rocket higher to that 423 price target. But since the Qs are much further ahead, we have hit a huge next level of supply and resistance at 338. And the Qs are overbought on the daily time frame, as seen on the RSI right over here. So last Friday we ended at $71.36. So the RSI value is at 71.36, which means there is potential for the RSI to drop back down below 70 to kind of recalibrate away from being overbought. So that there is a possibility, and that could mean that the price can come right back down to 330 to retest it as a new level of support. Why? Well, we really didn't do that after we broke over 330, because this candlestick we just shot straight up as if we were in a short squeeze like movement. And so with the price acting in this way, I expect the price to come back down in a nice textbook manner and a consolidation manner, retest 330 as a new level of support, and then bounce and possibly make a new consolidation range between 330 and 338. Yes, it's a very wide price range, but as the price hopefully continues to consolidate after bouncing from 330, we can start tightening up near 338. So that is what I'm looking at short term and long term for QQQ. And eventually, if we do get that ideal condition of a consolidation right underneath 338, then we can start breaking over to the 340s. But I'm not going to look that far into the future, because that is borderline speculation, or it is considered speculation at that point, whichever way you guys want to look at it. All right, so our first name is Riot, which is a great segue here since I've been talking about speculation. So Riot is really a heavy speculation name, all right? As Riot is definitely one of those few names that are heavily influenced by another asset's price, which is Bitcoin. And cryptocurrencies are very, very volatile, which makes Riot a speculative name. So why are we looking at Riot? Well, first of all, on the weekly time frame, we have a nice triangle chart pattern, specifically a wedge chart pattern. All right. Now, if you guys want to go down to the specifics, this can also be considered a bull flag, but for now, I'm not going to consider a bull flag because again, there is a possibility for this one to break to the downside since I'm looking for a long entry. And why am I looking for a possibility of a move to the downside? Well, first of all, again, it's a speculative name, right? So the momentum can pivot really quickly between buyers and sellers. And especially if we have that type of mindset, then a wedge chart pattern makes a lot more sense since it is a neutral chart pattern. And if we do see a break to the downside, then we can see a confirmed breakout to the downside since we're looking at this as a wedge chart pattern. But since we are looking at this to the long side, we're hoping to see a breakout to the upside. Now, with that in mind, I want to point out the fact that we have created a inside weekly candlestick. Now, obviously, we always talk about inside daily candlesticks, right? Inside day candlesticks on the daily time frame. So you might be wondering, well, does this even matter on the weekly time frame if we see it? And yes, it does matter. And right now we are in an uptrend. And inside day or inside week candlesticks tell us that there is a potential for a continuation of that current trend. And what is the current trend again? An uptrend. How do we know this? Because the price is going up, making higher highs, higher lows, and the weekly 10 SMA has finally caught up to the price as shown by the bounce and retest of the weekly 10 SMA last week at its lows, the weekly lows at $10.55. And so if you go back to the daily time frame with that knowledge, there is a chance that we can move slightly under this ascending support trend line, which is a part of the macro wedge chart pattern that you guys just saw on the weekly time frame. And why am I saying that? Well, that usually means that if that happens, the price is just trying to take out any weak buyers or holders on this name before we actually see the big pump to the upside. So I'm going to account for a possibility of that. And if we do see a break below this ascending support trend line, I expect us to retest at least the daily 50 SMA, this dark blue line, and even retest $10 flat. And we need to hold this support level at $10 because if we don't hold the daily 50 SMA and we come back down to retest the 10 SMA and then we don't even hold that support level, then it is going to be a confirmed break to the downside from this wedge chart pattern as I've shown you on the weekly time frame. And most likely we'll see a break all the way back down to the daily 200 SMA. But so far, everything tells me that we are ready for a move to the upside as we continue to hold and form this chart pattern, this wedge chart pattern, and we're still staying inside both of these trend lines. And I love the fact that we've been seeing the 10 and 21 SMAs coiling and converging just like we saw with SPY on the daily time frame right before its big breakout to the upside. And so let's see if we can see a good confirmed entry point over this breakout level at $12. Why at $12? Because we will be over this descending level of resistance, and this $12 resistance level is a very heavy level of supply or area of supply as seen by these daily candlesticks like this one, this one, this one, this one, where we start to see a heavy rejection after a retest of this level. All right, so our second name here is Shopify. Now, this one is definitely going to be on a watch because, again, as I said in the newsletter, it's not ready just yet. We have been overbought for a couple of trading days in the past 2 weeks, and we're still trying to recalibrate back to the quote-unquote normal values of the RSI because right now the RSI is at 64.58 from last Friday, which is not bad as we're not overbought. But when we tend to see a recalibration of the RSI, we tend to come back to a 40s to 50 value range on the RSI. So make sure you guys remember that. And if that happens, that should align to what I'm expecting Shopify to do. So after this huge earnings gap up, we have some great strength because we haven't even erased at least 50% of the gains that we made to the upside. Not yet. We're not even close yet. And that's including this gap up from this candlestick right here, which was right before earnings. And so this tells me that buyers are ready to continue this momentum to the upside. And sellers are having trouble trying to push the price lower, especially at the $62 level of resistance which we are now forming on the daily and on the intraday time frames. And so what are we exactly waiting for as we continue to observe this name? Well, since the 10 SMA has caught up to the price, just like I'm waiting on SPY for the 10 SMA to catch up to the price, I'm expecting the daily 21 SMA to catch up to the price. Because when that usually happens, we tend to get a nice bounce and the 10 and 21 SMA start to tighten up and coil up together, just like we saw on Riot. Okay. And we start to form a very nice bullish chart pattern for another potential run to the upside. And so for Shopify, continue to watch because there is still that slight possibility where bulls won't wait out the bears and they will push out every single shorts or bears and break over $62. And that can happen this week, okay? Because on the intraday time frames, we have been forming this descending channel as we continue to have a very orderly pullback. I mean, this is textbook pullback during a very, very nice short squeeze-like move to the upside. How do I know this? Well, again, the first thing that I look at is the volume. All right, the volume has dropped down after this massive run up to the upside. And as the price continues to pull back without seeing a huge, big volume-backed pullback to the downside, we're seeing a relatively low volume pullback and very orderly pullback to the downside. And as we're doing this, we have formed a nice descending channel chart pattern, which is inherently a bullish chart pattern. So there is that slight possibility of us breaking over $62 if we do see another third retest on this $62 level, because our first retest was right over here and then right over here. And I'm not going to consider this one as a retest because, again, we have tried to run over 62 on this specific candlestick. And instead, I'm focusing on this one and this one right over here because we have retested 62 and we were immediately slapped down by the sellers who are resting at the $62 level, which confirms that this is indeed a new resistance level that is forming on the daily time frame. So until we get that actual third retest on the $62 level, I will continue to wait and watch for this one for a potential break to the upside. All right, so our third name here is XOM. So for this one, it's pretty extended on the weekly time frame. All right. I mean, the only reason why I'm saying that is that we've been riding the weekly 50 SMA for the entire year of 2022. And that doesn't mean that we can continue to ride the weekly 50 SMA, this dark blue line. But there comes a point where the price becomes a bit overextended, where the support from the weekly 50 SMA is not substantial anymore, to the point where sellers, where buyers can continue to hold over this weekly 50 SMA. At some point, the buyers will fizzle out at the weekly 50 SMA and sellers will eventually come in. And so if you go back on the daily time frame with that in mind, we have also been just simply riding the daily 200 SMA, which kind of coincides with the weekly 50 SMA that you guys just saw. Now, if we just focus on the price action here, there is a possibility for us to form a nice double bottom chart pattern based on this ascending trend line, this ascending support trend line. And if we continue to hold this ascending support trend line, this higher low is potentially a good sign for a short-term move to the upside. And so I love the fact that we have actually retested and reclaimed the daily 10 SMA on Friday, because that could mean that we can see a retest of the daily 21 SMA, which is now currently trying to catch up to the price after we saw that massive big move to the downside in early May. And so if we do see another potential retest of the 10 SMA or around 106, that can be a potential early entry point at a bounce at $106. So if you go on the 2-hour time frame, okay, 106 has become a fairly critical level of support right over here. And so I love the fact that we're now using 106 as a level of new support, since in the past it has been used as a level of resistance. So specifically on Tuesday, it was Thursday of 2 weeks ago and Friday of 2 weeks ago, and last week on Thursday. There we go. So if you go back on the daily time frame with that information, okay, if you do want to wait out the bounce at 106, and if you were looking for a confirmation entry point, then 107 will be your best bet for a confirmed and also slightly early entry point, because I would actually wait until we see a retest of the daily 21 SMA and see how we react and see how we consolidate for a potential consolidation range to form between 106 and 109, which is our next major level of resistance. But if you want to get in a little bit earlier as a confirmed reversal entry point, 107 is your best bet for a large move to the upside for a possible retest at 109, which will be your first profit target or price target. And at that point, hopefully we can see a retest of the daily 21 SMA, which is now really, really close to 109, and even on the daily 50 SMA as well, since we did lose it a couple of weeks ago. Okay, last but not least, let's take a look at ONON, or on holding. So this one is going to be a pretty high conviction trade for this week. Why? Well, there is a certain rule when we start to see 4 consecutive back-to-back red candlesticks, because that is usually a sign that the markets are yearning for a green candlestick to appear. And so ideally, I want us to have a red open tomorrow morning and possibly a bounce at $26, which is our next immediate level of support, and also very close to the lows of the earnings day gap up. And so if we're able to hold after retesting $26, since on Friday we were off by 10 cents as the low was at $26.10, then we can see a potential move to the upside, changing that potential daily candlestick from red to green, and we can have a confirmed entry point for a reversal over $27. Now, why $27? Well, it's a bit arbitrary, but based on how I know my SMAs move, especially my 10 SMA on the 2-hour time frame, we're about to see a potential retest of the 10 SMA. How do we know this? Well, the 10 SMA has caught up to the price. All right, as we're getting very, very close to the price here, or the candlesticks themselves. And so at some point, I'm going to expect 27 to become an intraday level of resistance. And so once that happens, we will most likely see a coinciding retest of the 2-hour 10 SMA as well. And as we're kind of consolidating right underneath $27, we will see the 21 SMA also coming back down. And possibly, if we do break over $27, we will retest and reclaim the 10 SMA just like we did for XOM on the daily time frame. And if that does happen with ONON, there's a possibility for us to have a very large move to the upside or a reversal to the upside for a possible retest of the next major level resistance at $29 and possibly even to that $30 level. And why do I say $30 level? Well, there is a great possibility in the long term for the price to come back to retest the daily 50 SMA, which we just lost on Wednesday. And guess what? We haven't come back to retest it, because usually when we tend to break a major level of support or resistance or a major SMA like the daily 50 SMA, we tend to come back to retest it, whether or not we're in an uptrend or a downtrend. And specifically for this name, we are definitely in a downtrend, but we have not seen a retest back to the upside to at least touch the daily 50 SMA as a confirmation point to be used as a level of resistance during this new downtrend. All right, so hopefully this one can see a nice move or reversal back to the upside starting tomorrow. And hopefully we get that ideal situation where we see the candlesticks going from red to green. All right, so that is it for this week. Make sure you guys continue to check the CFO Discord if I see any new entry points for all of our 4 names for this week. And also, make sure you guys have your alerts on for every single name. Alerts are very, very important, especially if you do not want to miss out on very nice breakouts to the upside or simply to the downside if you guys are looking for any type of shorts. Okay, if you guys thought this technical analysis video was insightful and useful, make sure you leave a like down below. And if you aren't subscribed yet, I don't know why you guys aren't, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Good luck, and I'll see you guys all in the morning.